Hi everyone, Bob Bannister from iManage Performance here. Just a little snippet. I want to talk to you about leadership. How do you create leaders? Well, there's books and manuals and all sorts of information that will talk about that. But I just want to focus on this simple idea. Perhaps we are not a leader until we have followers. And if that's the case, we're not leading until we have followers, then leadership has to have something to do with generating followers. So if we put that into a mix, it's a good question to ask, well, how do we do that? How do we get people to follow us, or how do we follow others? What causes us to follow other people? And there are many things that are involved in that. But here are 5 quick ideas that causes people to want to follow somebody else. I'm going to refer to them as powers. They're not something that we would play, but they're powers that exist over the follower if the leader has this orientation. So the first one is reward power, and the second is coercive. Let's talk about those together, because this is traditional carrot and stick logic. Reward power is all about the perception that the follower will have a positive outcome if they comply with the instruction of the leader. And coercive power is the reverse of that. It's the perception that the leader will bring about a negative outcome for me if I don't comply and follow the leader's instruction. So, but these are 2 sides of the same coin, but they really have a prominent place to play in followership. You know, if we think about coercive power, we can look back in history and see nations that have been ruled by coercive power. We can perhaps think about military situations where, you know, if you don't comply, then it's 50 press-ups or you're in the slammer or whatever it might be. So coercive power does exist in the workplace, in the world, but also in the workplace, in that if we correct somebody, or if we go into performance management processes, or we call somebody to task about something, that would all be considered coercive in a sense. But the reward power is really strong too. You know, the ability just to say thank you, the ability to perhaps give the work to somebody that they prefer, maybe even put them in a place of opportunity and promotion and put a good word in for them. These would all be perceived as reward characteristics that the individual therefore would then look to follow that individual. But that's 2, reward coercive power. Here's a third one, legitimate power. The fact that you are my boss. Now, there are many studies about this. You could Google this and find situations where people have obeyed an authority just because of the legitimacy of their authority. You know, the classic example, the Milgram experiment of the white coat telling people to do something that was ultimately damaging to another person. Although it was only an experiment and not real, but people were surprisingly willing to comply with the instruction of the legitimate power, the hierarchical power. So that comes into play. The 2 others are expert power. So we will follow somebody if we perceive they are experts at something. Individuals who maybe have a particular skill. So let's say finance, if you're an accountant. So I will go to my accountant and seek advice from that accountant and follow their instruction and their guidance, because to me, they're the perceived expert in that area. So we can have expert power over people, and that will cause us to be willing to follow. And the 5th area in this idea of followership has to do with, it's called referent power. It has to do with the likability of the individual. We might be willing to follow somebody if we warm to them in some way, if we find them attractive in some way. And of course, that's not just physically attractive, although it could be. It could be humor or some characteristic we admire in them. And this referent power is something that perhaps if you look to Hollywood, a lot of the stars would have referent power over their followers. But that exists in every walk of life. If I like working for you as my boss, then that's referent power. And you know, being liked is a very easy thing to achieve and a very cheap thing to achieve. There's no cost. It's just thinking about how do I create an environment where my team warm to me. And that doesn't mean I can't on occasions be developmental and improve people and encourage them to make changes in what they do, and use coercive power, if you like, in part of that mix. Because the reality, all these things coexist together. But if I want to be a leader of my people, it's worth thinking about these 5 ideas. It's worth thinking through how am I seen to outwork these, to deliver these different powers. I'm not going to say right now I'm going to do some reward power, but can I think through my week and think there are times when I praise people, there are times when I correct or help people to develop in that coercive way? Are there times where I would use my legitimate power as being the boss, the hierarchy, the senior person in a team or an environment? Are there occasions when I demonstrate my expertise? And then are there situations that I encourage this referent idea of just being an individual that others might admire or appreciate or value in some way. So just 5 simple ideas that help us think through some of the aspects of creating followers. Have a think about it. Scribble those ideas down and think about how they might show themselves and demonstrate themselves over the coming days. Do connect with us, join with us and follow on our YouTube channel, at iManage on the Twitter feed as well, a fantastic Twitter feed growing daily. Join up with us and keep in touch, because we've got some really exciting news in future days, especially about the iManage Academy. More of that to follow, but thanks for now.